Welcome back. This is Adwicta, and we are doing the Fractured and Alterac Valley card valuation stream video podcast thing. And we have done 3 cards so far.
We're doing great. If
40
we just
minutes for 3 cards.
if we extrapolate this, it'll be done by like Wednesday. The expansion will be out, and then we'll be finishing it up. Okay, so
All right.
we're doing good, but it's gonna be faster.
Yeah, I mean, this video is going to be long because there's 19 cards to get through. These are all the
faster.
ones that are either C, C+, or B rated. And we're going to start with the Bs and work our way down, and within that, we're going to start with the lower mana ones. So this is not in like exact tier list order, it's just in tier order. So all the Bs first. So the next card is a 2-mana card, spoiler alert. That does not mean that it is the 4th best card in the set necessarily, but it just means that it is the lowest mana card that we're rating a B. We count all the Bs in one tier. That's how we do things now. We don't have an algorithm giving that precise a number. Okay. So the first card we're going to talk about in this general video, which is about the other playable cards in Alterac Valley, is Corporal. Corporal, honestly, I think this is one of the weakest in the Bs, but it is still in tier B. It's a 2-mana 2/3, honorable kill, give your other minions Divine Shield. So it does not have to live. That's the thing with honorable kill. It can die. As long as it dealt 2 damage and killed something, your other minions all get Divine Shield. But it does have to like live a turn and then attack into something.
Alright, so I see this comment in the chat, and it is absolutely true. So remember, a Croc is D tier.
Yes.
For this to be B, it means
a Croc is D+ tier.
It's like barely, right? Like barely D+.
Sure. I mean, D+ is just a very small tier, right? Like all the pluses are small tiers.
It's like
so yes, it's on the lower half of the D+ tier.
So that means that this ability must be so good, and it is sometimes. So sometimes this thing is like a S+ card.
Yes.
Very rare.
This is game winning sometimes.
Sometimes it is like a S+ card. Sometimes it is the Croc. It's not going to be that
often
S tier card.
It is a Croc.
Often it is the Croc.
That's why this is only rated a B.
Yes. But it's still good. Like it's still good. You're going to hit it. Like you're going to hit the home run very rarely, but sometimes, and you just win that game. And then there's those in between times, right, where you play it, and then what do? Do they play like they can't really play a 2/2 into it. That's terrible. If they play a 3/2 into it, then your Divine Shield, then they get Divine Shield on their next drop. It's awkward. So it's good. This thing, don't just think about the blow up potential. No. Think about that exact scenario that I'm talking about. You or your opponent drops this. If there's a 3/2 potentially looking to be dropped on the other side, they kind of can't. Or if they do, they're giving Divine Shield to the next thing or next 2 things.
And keep in mind, you're not losing the game if you give the 3-drop a Divine Shield. Like if your opponent plays this card and you're like, crap, I have to play a 3/2. My opponent's going to get like a 3/4 with a Divine Shield now. You don't lose the game because this happened. You're just behind a bit, because there's a lot of swings happening. This is Skullman's Academy coming in. We're in the new era. This is 2021, almost 2022. So this isn't, like, that exchange that Merps talked about makes this card very good, like an Argent Protector, which is really good these days. But it doesn't win you the game right there the way Argent Protector, for example, would have won you the game in Classic.
Right. So just think about it in that way. So even this scenario that I'm talking about, and I see some of you guys talking about, it's like, oh, but that's so... This is Hearthstone in late 2021. Almost Hearthstone in 2022 KEKW, right? Like, we are near there. So even if you get that free Divine Shield on your 3-drop, okay, so what? You've heard all the cards that are even just coming back, and all of the AoE, and all of the things, and all of the ways that classes can prolong the game and then get a huge amount. That Divine Shield on the 3-drop, yeah, it matters, but like it's not backbreaking anymore. You know, this isn't that tempo meta where you have that tempo advantage and you snowball off of the tempo advantage. Tempo always matters. That's true. but tempo is less of a decider. Early tempo is less of an early decider than it was in previous years. So yes, this is why like it is just a B. Now the variance is higher with this card, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have those situations in which like this can and will blow out the game. It doesn't happen that often. When it's a croc, it really sucks. And in those like mid-range-ish, like it gives a divine shield to one thing, or maybe like one decent thing and one really small thing, it doesn't win the game. So that's where the score is at. I do like to point out whenever there's a card that has like bigger variance than others, because some are just like, this is always how good it is, and this is like, oh, sometimes it's amazing, but sometimes it's real trash, as in a croc, which is trash now.
Like I don't think this card is like, I will not be drafting it as high as B because of the huge variance. Like that's not what good players want, right? Like cards that provide that big of variance. They want more stable cards that are just like good. But we're like, honorable kills all variance. Like you saw that with Knight Captain, which was in the previous video, and the third best card in the set. This card is high variance too. All the honorable kill ones are. This is the meta we're stepping in. Like Alterac is gonna be terrible for the arena. It's just set up that way. Like everything is just aligning to be like, nope. And then they didn't even bring in a standard meta, and they brought in another wild meta just to make the differences even more stark. This is gonna be you're gonna hate seeing Corporal on the other side, and you're gonna love having Corporal on your side. And sometimes, I mean, often it's gonna be a croc. Okay.
Next card. We will be faster with the next one. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the Corporal's an interesting card. Next card is a Direwolf Commander. Direwolf Commander is a 3-mana 2/5 neutral common. Honorable kill. Summon a 2/2 wolf with stealth.
This is just good. 2/5 is not normal. Exactly like what you want for 3, but it's good. It's good. And you know, it survives. The chance of you getting the honorable kill are like fair. You know, they're good. They're pretty good. So.
And if you get an honorable kill, like 2/2 stealth, that's like a normal 2-drop almost.
Yeah, that's very, very worth it if you get the honorable kill. So, and you'll get a decent amount. It's a B. It's nice.
Yep. See, this is the card that I like. I will take this card over Corporal because the variance is not that huge, and the percent chance of it triggering is larger. So this is the kind of card that I like in my decks. They're both B tier, but it's very different than Corporal and how it functions in your okay, next one, still on the B tier, is Piggyback Imp. We did it. We hugely power creep Scarlet Crusader. Piggyback Imp is a 3-mana 4/1 demon with Death Rattle, summon a 4/1 imp. So it's Scarlet Crusader with an extra attack. It's really
Crusader
good.
With extra attack, or Cursed Disciple, but a little bit cheap. Like, you know, there's ways to categorize it. It's just a solid
better
minion.
than a Cursed Disciple. You'd rather have a 3-mana 4/1 Divine Shield than a 4-mana 5/1 Divine Shield.
True. It's just good stats. Let's just face it. It's just good stats for what it is. Even if you're a ping class, you know, this is pretty annoying to get rid of. Like, you know, if you're a mage and if you're pinging it, that means they played a 1-mana 4/1. That's pretty good. I think you're quite happy with that. So nothing really to explain. We've seen so many minions like this. This is just a good stats, sticky on the board. It's nice.
This is your normal arena, very good for this meta. Like back in the day, this would have been insane. We would have been like, what? How would you do this, Blizzard? Now it's like, yeah, normal.
This is good. This is good.
All right. Next up, we have Herald of Locholar. But only for classes with frost spells, and no, because I read Reddit, warriors are not considered a class with frost spells, even though they have frost spells now, because their frost spells suck. This is a 4-mana 3/5 Battlecry. Draw a frost spell.
Yep. So once again, if for the other classes, this is a D. This is a D.
Don't take this if you don't have frost spells. Just in case you wanted to. Try your best not to. It's as bad as you think it is. But if it does have a frost spell, you're drawing not just like, you kind of know what card you're drawing first of all, because how many frost spells are you really gonna have in your deck? And 2, you're going to get a spell. And spells are really good.
Spells are very good. So, yes. And for example, Frost Shaman is now kind of,
It's a
it's a thing.
definite
So
thing.
it's definitely a thing. So, you want to look at if it's like pick number 24 and you have no frost spells, like don't look at the bag. Oh, merps, but you said it was this and it was trash. No, like use some common sense,
Yeah.
okay? But on average, if you are a class that has frost spells and everything, it's a B-ish, and for other classes, it's a D.
Yep. All right. Next up, we have another icy dude. This one is an Ice Revenant, 4 mana for 5 elemental. Yeti. Whenever you cast a frost spell, gain +2/+2. This one is also in the B tier if you have frost spells. And it works the other way as the other one, which is that you could just play it, right? Like the other one is a 4 mana 3/5, so you're off tempo when you play it. This one, just a pure bonus, and your opponent will always be scared of this staying around on the board because at any point it could become a freaking 6/7.
Yeah. Look, the thing about frost spells is you won't have that many, and if you have like a ton, sure, like during your draft, just draft this like much higher, right? Um, the other spell drew you a frost spell. This you have to cast one, which means you have to play this first. And you have to have another one in the hand, depending on the class, depending on the deck. It could happen, but it won't happen super duper often. When it does happen, it's amazing though. So yeah, this is like it's a Yeti otherwise, right?
Yeah.
It's a Yeti.
Otherwise, it's a
tag.
Yeti with a little bit of an upside, not just
A
the
tiny
tag, but
bit of an
also
upside.
like
Yeah.
even if you're not like even if you are a warrior, right, or you are a hunter, and like your secret could potentially be a frost spell, right? You have like 2 of these in your whole thing, and you may or may not have 1 in your deck, or you can maybe generate one from like a random generation thing. Like it's still a little better than Yeti, and Yeti's between D+ and C. So otherwise, it's a C. But if you are in a shaman or a mage kind of like class, this is it. This is it.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right. Next one we have the Frantic Hippograph. The interesting card.
Hippogriff. It's not. You keep saying it. It's Griff.
Hippogriff. It is 5 mana 3/7 rush. Honorable kill. Gain Wind Fury.
Yeah, this one I debated on this one a little bit. I was like, maybe it's a C plus instead. I don't think this is a high B. Do you think it's like
Definitely not
a
a
high B or a low B?
I think I specifically marked this as B. I'll do C plus if you want it.
Yeah. So this is one in which I thought about a little bit as well. I'm like, you know what? The initiative is good. Like I like the fact that you can deal this damage. The stats are just a little bit lacking here. I wish it did a little bit more.
Like you guys remember the 4 mana 2/6 rusher that can become a 6/2 rusher depending on which turn it is in your hand from like Witchwood? How often did you use the 2/6 rusher? Right? Like, yeah, 5 mana 3/7 rusher is better than a 4 mana 2/6 rusher by quite a bit, but still, it's just not like the most amazing thing.
Yeah, this is okay. So for me, it's like a lower tier
Mhm.
B card. But it's still nice. It's very flexible. It can kill 2 things and maybe even live. Because
Yeah.
you only have to you just have to hit the first thing and get the honorable kill, and then you can gain a Wind Fury, and then you
Mhm.
can hit the 2/1 or 2/2
And then it
that you
keeps the
also want to
Wind
hit.
Fury. So if it lives, it's actually a threat to face the next turn. And or a
Yeah.
threat to be buffed or like whatever, right?
Yep. So it's fine. Next.
So next we have our last card in the B tier set. It is a Troll Centaurion. A Troll Centaurion, 8 mana, 8/8 rush. Honorable kill, deal 8 damage to the enemy hero. You will not get an honorable kill with this guy. You will not deal 8 damage to something that has 8 health. I'm not saying you will never do it, but you will do it so few that this ability is worth almost nothing. But it's still an 8 mana 8/8 rush, and if Dig Day taught us anything, it's that those cards are still pretty damn good, and so this is a B.
Sometimes you'll get it. Sometimes, okay? It could happen.
Let's
but
move on.
Yes, if a lot of you guys are thinking, oh, there's so much stuff with 8 health, a lot of them are going away, guys. So, for example, people are talking about Primordial Drake, that's gone. People are talking about Morg, that's gone. So, some things are coming back, but to replace those bigger drops, for example, like Wrapped Golem doesn't work, right? Violet Worm does not work.
Proto Drake works.
Proto Drake
You'll lose
works.
the game if you do it, but it works.
Unless
you win the game.
You'll lose the game unless you win the game right there. Yeah. You ever think about that? I mean, that actually could be a thing,
8 damage to the face is a lot. So
yeah, 8 to the face is a ton. You could actually just win the game, like ship everything face, and then you rush this out to kill the Pro Drake to deal basically a slightly smaller Pyroblast damage. And then you just win. Yeah.
All right. Well,
it could happen.
We are now into the C+ tier. So we're going to start off with, so how we do pluses is we take like a tier, like let's say a tier has like 4 points to it, then the top point within the tier is the plus, and the other 3 points are just the regular tier. So there should be much fewer pluses than there are the regular tier. And so the next card is a C+, and it's a very high C+. We almost made it a B.
This is almost a B.
Yeah.
Close. This is close. We talked about this.
Yeah. This is definitely close, and it is Bunker Sergeant. I know a lot of people love this card. I've seen it get rated super high in places, and I am not impressed. I mean, I'm impressed enough to give it a C+, because that's still really good. Like you're happy to have it in your deck. Certainly, it's going to be better than the average card in your deck, probably. But it's not up to that B level that we've been talking about before, and certainly not like one of like the top cards in the set, even in neutral. So Bunker Sergeant's a 3 mana 2/4 battle cry. If your opponent has 2 or more minions, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. Yep. Shades of Twilight Flamecaller.
So the thing about this card, Bunker Sergeant, if you just think about Twilight Flamecaller is not as good as it was before. If Twilight Flamecaller, like, because we remember Twilight Flamecaller as this world beater. It was so good. So let's think about why Twilight Flamecaller was so good, beyond the fact that the power level was significantly different back then. Twilight Flamecaller was also out in a meta, or a few metas in a row, in which mages, if you remember, we played Shady Mage for a while. I remember Shady teaching me all of this, in which not prioritizing kind of like this mid game, having very good early game and removal, and then having good late game, like big drops. So in that kind of playstyle, and mages just kept trending kind of like towards that playstyle, like as well. It's like, who wants a freaking Yeti, right? No one does, and now Yeti is basically extinct. Sorry, Yeti. Twilight Flamecaller was very, very good because it was one of the only tools, and it was a very good tool at that time. But if you put it now, it's just like, okay, well, it's fine. The body of the Bunker Sergeant is pretty trash. 2/4 body just isn't really good.
Like 2/4s are bad. They're bad. Like, yeah, they're better than a 2/2, but they're still bad.
Yeah. So look, I actually had this at a B. And Adwick talked me down to like a C+. I think if you want to say it's like a low B, I'm with you, like, because that's where I was at. I'm fine with this being at a high C, because I don't, like, to me it doesn't really matter. Like, I know it matters because it does cross that line, right? I can tell you guys right now, if you say I think of this as like a B, but
like if it's a very low B, fine. Like, there's got to be lines drawn somewhere, right? Like, we already have it as a C+. That means it's very close to a B. You want it to be a really terrible B, that's all the same. We're not too far off. What I want to point out why this card is not a great card. Like I've seen this rated as literally one of the top neutral cards in the set,
No.
and I think that's wrong. It's because one, it is conditional. The amount of times that you actually want to play this on turn 3 is going to be high. It would have been amazing as a 3-drop. That's when the 2/4 actually matters. And you can't, most of the time, because your opponents won't have 2 things on their board. And so you would just be playing a 3-mana 2/4, which is not that good. So you got to play it later. And this is not a 3-drop. Kind of rough. When you play it later, though, what are you doing? You're playing like a good spell. This is the same thing with this Defile and Spammy Arcanist. You're playing a good spell, except you're not playing Defile. You're playing a 1-mana deal 1 damage to all enemy minions card, like Shooting Stars. And Shooting Stars is good. Shooting Stars would be like, I don't know, like a B, maybe even a B+. But then you're attaching to it a 2-mana off-curve 2/4 body. Now you've got problems. You can't ping with it as easily because you're now committing 3 mana to it instead of 1. 2/4 bodies are generally crap, especially in this upcoming meta. And it goes down. Like when you attach crap bodies to otherwise good cards, it really does drag them down. So like the same people that are wanting Spammy Arcanist to be an S tier, there's a reason Spammy Arcanist is only an A tier. If you want Bunker Sergeant to be like a B+, for example, there's a reason it's a C+, maybe with a very low end of B. It's because this body is trash, and you're putting way too much weight onto this trash body. Like, this is not Shooting Stars. Yeah. This is significantly worse than Shooting Stars.
Yeah, that's kind of the way it is. Like, you don't want this body attached to the Shooting Stars, just like how you don't want the Spammy Arcanist body attached to the Defile. So that's kind of where we're at. And it was the thing that like kind of pushed me over as well. I was like, okay, yeah, 2/4 body is just one of the worst stat lines you can have. Well, as you get later on in the game, it's just really bad. Like still C+, C+ or a low B, right? Yeah, we can call it C+ or a low B. You will pretty happily draft this. Like I don't want this to be so negative and for you guys to think that we think it's a bad card. No. You will draft this and it will be
better than half the cards in your deck.
Yeah, this will be a good option a decent amount of times. But yeah, I don't agree with some of the evaluations I've seen that called this one of the best cards in the set. I don't think it's going to be that good. But you're going to draft it, and it will sometimes be one of the better cards in your deck. These things can all be true, right? It's just we don't see some of the hype that some people have.
And like we listed a whole bunch of cards that are better than this, right? Like every card that came before this, essentially. So are like around the same or better. So yeah.
Yeah. Once again, this is going to show as a C+. Let it be known that I thought of it as a B. I think Adulta was like, this is close. This is a close one, but you got to cut the line somewhere. So it's like an honorable low B.
Yep. These are the two. You wanted this to be a B, and I wanted Corporal to be a C+. And we ended up with Corporal at a B because that was just more swingy. Like, could go different places. This one's pretty set.
Yeah.
This one's set.
The longer Arena goes on for, and the more you see the power level, the more I reward big swings. Because it's like, at a certain point, you just had to understand, it's like, it's not enough for you to just be a solid player with good fundamentals. You have to take these swings. You have to take these chances. And, you're going to set them up better. You're going to capitalize on them better. But literally everyone has to do that. There was a time in which, like, you could not only just get away with as a good player, but you should actively go away from these effects. And the cards were so different back then. So let's, and now you need to embrace it. You need to embrace it in the best way possible. So that's why for cards like Corporal, I look at it, I'm just like, that's good. Like you just get to blow people out sometimes. That's great. I love that. So it's also why when you look at something like Deep Run into Goliath, I think people might be able to visualize this more. It's not about the average. It's about when you do hit Goliath, your chance of winning just goes up so much. 7-mana Goliath, right? So if you just average it out, I don't think it's fair. Because you're like, oh, then it's this good, and just gets dragged down a lot by this stuff. I'm like, no. You have to take into account whenever you do hit, your chance of winning the game go up by that much, and that is so important now when there's like, just like swing and swing and swing and swing. When you can do a huge swing, like an even bigger swing in a meta full of swings, and work to lock up the win in a bigger way than your opponents can do it, that is worth a lot.
All right. Next up, another C+. This is how you know C+ is still a good area. You have Bloodguard. The 5 mana 4/7, which is already just normal stats. Although I will say anything from 5 mana and above that has normal stats is not a good card. But the ability here is quite nice. Whenever this minion takes damage, it doesn't have to live through it. It just has to take damage. Give your minions +1 attack. That includes this minion. So, this is not just a 4/7. It is a 4/7 that is on a reactive turn, like the turn afterwards, but it has 7 health. It will probably live the turn. You can give all of your minions +1 attack. But even if you do that, this minion, after you attack something, does get the +1 attack, but it won't matter until the turn after that, right? Because you can't attack with it again. It doesn't have win. So, it's a very complicated card. Like, it's not as good as it seems. Because it seems kind of ridiculous on first glance. You're like, you have a normally statted 5-drop that just like buffs all your crap by +1 attack. Like, what? Including itself? But there's like so many awkwardness that's kind of built into the card. It'll still get you some stats. Quite a lot of stats, actually. But your opponents are likely to control a lot of where these stats go. And a lot of these stats are going to be useless when they come on, because they'll come on to something that's like about to die or that doesn't have initiative anymore. It's still a very good card. If this did not have the ability, it would be a D+. So it's a C+ now. Like, this ability is making quite a bit of movement on the card, but it's not like a game-winning ability.
This is just sort of okay. So when you look at a C+ card, you're like, okay, this is on the edge of an average card-ish in my deck, right? Like this is about there. It's like a C+ or like a very low B. And this is just the power level of cards that are acceptable nowadays. And if you're looking for, you can think about all these great scenarios for the card. I'm looking at chat right now, and they're like, wait, this is good. It's like, imagine it with this card, imagine it with that card, imagine this scenario. And I understand some of you are joking, but like one of the examples is like, oh, this is great with Broomstick. No, it's okay with Broomstick. Like,
you have to spend 5 mana. Like, on this card.
On this.
Yeah. Whereas Broomstick, you want to, like, rush out a lot of stuff.
Also, like, do you know how good, like, 2-card combos are nowadays? 2-card combos are really, really good. This plus Broomstick, and I'm assuming you guys are talking about this plus Broomstick plus other minions, so we're talking about, what, like 10 mana, and you get, like, 4 extra mana to just do stuff? I'm not even saying that's like not a great combo. That's not even like a good.
No, it's not a good combo.
It's not even a good combo.
It's like I see a little synergy here.
Yeah. There's something there. But no, this is like you expect a 5-drop that doesn't have initiative to have something like this. If the ability is worse than this, you don't really want to draft it. You don't really want that in your deck. So when you see this card in your deck, this is exactly the power level that is acceptable to be the average nowadays. That's why it is a C+. Because remember, that line of a card that you will draft in your deck, it's between a C+ and a low B.
All right, and the last C+ we have in neutrals for the Alterac set is a Legionnaire. This is a 6-mana card, 9/3. Death Rattle. Give all minions in your hand +2/+2. So before, I forget what the card is called, we had a 9-mana 9/7, right? That gave everything in your hand like +4/+4, +3/+3. I forget what it was. It was a terrible card. And we said it was a terrible card pre-release.
It was Anubis Seth.
Anubis Seth. Yeah. That was a card that tricked a lot of people. A lot of very good players thought that was going to be a good card, and we said it was going to.
Well, it didn't really trick. It only tricked Trip. It was just
Okay,
Crypt.
was it just Crypt? Okay,
It was
well, we
literally just
tricked
Crypt.
one really good player,
It
one
was just
prominent really good player, and yeah, but we knew it was going to be trash, and it was trash. This is not going to be trash. This is going to be the Anuba set that actually works in the arena. It's on 6, not 9, huge difference. You really want to kill this, and it's really easy to kill. It does not have 7 health, but it still has that 9 damage of face-going potential. So your opponent is like, I should really kill this. And then you buff your whole entire hand of minions +2/+2. You also don't want to leave this up if you're facing this, because your opponent's just going to draw more cards and then kill it off himself, and then get one more minion buffed. Like, you really do need to kill this card when it comes out. It's meant to be killed. You are not, like, falling for his trick if you kill, like, this card when it comes out. You should kill it. And your opponent's going to get +2/+2 on all his or her minions. And that's just the way it is. And
right.
that's a C+. That's a good, fair for this meta card.
So one of the things that you always have to ask yourself when you look at a card like this is how fast is the meta going to be, right? How fast is the meta going to be? Because if the meta is even somewhat fast, this card sucks. Uh, so you want to ask yourself, how fast is the meta, and how many taunts are there going to be? I've already told you guys. We have some taunts. We have some decent taunts in the meta. It's not going to be fast. So if those things are true, and we have seen how good like conditioning is,
Also, there's going to be a lot of cards in your hand.
there's going to be a lot of cards in your hand because of the generation. Remember that.
Although they may not necessarily be minions.
They might not necessarily be minions, but it also means that you can afford to like play spells, and if you know that this is coming out. It just, I'm guessing, and I would be surprised if I were wrong, that it would just be a good meta for this card. And like it's not higher because it is more awkward to use than like conditioning. Conditioning is very good. Yeah, conditioning is like really really good. But it's still quite good, and there's too many ways for you to get the value from it and not die. So if you can do that, it's really nice.
People are raising a lot of this stuff like, oh, it dies to this, it dies to that. And this time I'm not even going to say, oh, those are specific counters to it. No, it dies to a lot of things. That's the point. It's just meant to take 3 efficient damage from like your opponents and then buff your hand. The main ability here is that it buffs your hand for the next turn when you get to play, let's say, even if you just play 2 minions. Well, now you have like 8 more stats. And that was 6 mana that you played the turn before. That soaked up 3 damage of must remove, right? Because otherwise you get to deal 9 damage to something, even if it's their face. And you still get 8 more stats this turn. And on some future turns, you get to play out the other minion that you have, or 2 minions that you have, or whatever that has the buff. That's the power of this card. It is not that it will ever live a turn. If this lives a turn, you pretty much win the game, I think. Like, if someone's going to leave a 9/3 up and has no way to get rid of it, like, you're doing quite well. And this card will get a lot of value in that case. So it should die, and it should die super efficiently. If your opponent has a 3/3 on the board, play this card.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you have gotten the worth. Like, because of how good conditioning is. If you guys, once again, conditioning was really, and this I think is a little bit controversial, which I was surprised at. But when I was watching streams and just like kind of like reading chat as well, this is one in which I was surprised at, because Twitch chat is always right. But a lot of people just were like, "Oh, conditioning, it's like not that great." I'm like, "Wait, conditioning is like one of the best warrior cards. It's amazing."
By the way, conditioning we rated a B+. FYI, this one we're rating a C+. So yeah, this is not as good as conditioning, but that's how good conditioning is. We rated that card a B+.
Yeah. So yes. I like this card. I think this might be one in which people look at it and they're like, "Oh, it's too slow." Too slow is not what you think it is. With the cards that are coming back, with the tools that are available, with the way that Blizzard has been deprioritizing early game tempo in favor of stuff of just making like 2 drops and 3 drops more viable in the late game. Like, they have extra abilities, but they don't give you extra tempo, So yes, whenever I look at these cards, I'm like, is it too slow? Because too slow means something very different in 2021, almost 2022, than it did in like 2017, right? And we will see that with all the like field cards as well later on. Just a little bit of a preview.
All right, let's move on to C tier. This is now the actual normal tier. Yeti is at the bottom of this tier. These cards are not spectacular. We have gotten to the bottom of what we consider playable. Like, Yeti's the absolute bottom of what we consider playable in your deck that you will not feel terrible for having. Like, below Yeti is like a Croc, in which you do feel pretty bad if you have a Croc in your deck. Like, it won't kill your deck, but it's D tier cards and D plus tier cards you're not going to be happy with. At C, you recognize that these are not the top half of your deck. You recognize that. It's very obvious that they're not the top half of your deck. But they can still contribute, do their job, and they're probably not going to sink your deck by having a few of these in. So the first one in here is Ram Commander. 2 mana, 2/2, Battlecry. Add 2 1/1 Rams with Rush to your hand. So 2 mana, 2/2 is not great, but playable. It adds 2 cards to your hand, which is pretty good, but those cards kind of suck. But they're playable, right? 1 mana, deal 1 damage. We've had so much of those, generators. We know exactly what they're like. They do work. You need a damage, and especially with honorable kills coming around, those could be very handy. So it's a C, and when we rate a card a C, it means it's better than a Yeti, right? You could just think of it that way. C means better than a Yeti. D plus means worse than a Yeti. So this is better than a Yeti. Not great, but it's better than a Yeti.
Yeah, it's about what you expect nowadays. You get a little bit of extra bonus. But remember, pings aren't worth that much. Like, there's so many ways to deal damage. And you don't even need, like, exact damage in terms of pings sometimes, because you just sweep everything up with, like a huge AoE. There's a lot of AoEs now, and every class has them. So it's nice, but what you're getting back is also something that is pretty readily available for every class.
And keep in mind, it's not really on curve. The amount of 2/2s, especially with corporals around, like it's kind of a scary play in this meta.
Oh, definitely. Yep.
Sneaky Scout is next up. It is 2 mana, 3/2, stealth, honorable kill. Your next hero power costs 0.
It's nice. You get a bonus. It's basically it. Like, oh yeah, you get to cheat out a hero power. That's great.
But it's a 2 mana, 3/2 stealth, right? Like that's just good by itself.
No, it is good. So most of its like, okay, Corporal, most of its score is that ability. As in, that's the thing that's elevating it, and really the chance of you landing it, that's what really elevates it. Here it's like, okay, it's a nice little stealth 2-drop, got a little bit of a bonus. That little bit of a bonus moves the needle a tiny bit, but not by that much.
All right, next up is Storm Pike Quartermaster, another 2-drop, 2 mana, 2/2. After you cast a spell, give a random minion in your hand +1/+1. You don't play it on turn 2, unless you absolutely have to and have nothing else to do. Like, it's not good enough that you would save it to play later on. Like, you'll just drop it on turn 2 if you have nothing else to do. But generally, you want to play it later on, and then you can get quite a few buffs onto your hands by playing a couple spells. It is what it is. It's the +1/+1s to random minions in your hands are useful, but it is also, obviously not like a superpower card.
Yeah, this card, I think, like I'm looking at chat right now. Some people are just like, "Oh, it's so bad." It's not that bad. The stats matter. You don't want to play this on turn 2, but that doesn't mean that the effect it gives you isn't worth sort of like the 2 mana investment later on. It's fine. Remember, it's a C, which means it is worse than the average card in your deck. So we're not saying it's
but it's
a good
better
card.
than a Yeti. And yeah, I see Coast in chat who brings up that there's a coin. Yeah, that's why spells are
That's
a thing.
And this is the average score. So yes, we are accounting for the fact that sometimes you get a coin. And then when you don't have a coin, yeah, it is worse. It is definitely worse. But yes, so this is where it is at. Like, it's not going to be one of the best cards in your deck, nowhere close. But you'll draft it sometimes, And I think you'll be surprised at how not trash it is. Maybe not as trash as you thought it was.
Okay. Next up is Kabold Taskmaster. Kabold Taskmaster is a 3 mana 2/4 battle cry. Add 2 armor scraps to your hand. They give +2 health to a minion. Armor scraps cost 1 mana.
Flexibility is all right. And we have seen that like the bad stuff. We keep talking about how bad a 3 mana 2/4 is, and that rings true. But once again, things like this, it's like you don't lose automatic. This isn't the GVG meta, in which if you play a worse 3-drop than them, you automatically just lose. Plus, you won't play this as a 3-drop sometimes, and then the armor scraps, they're useful, right? Like having spells is useful. To trigger like Maze Scribe, just adding health to things is useful as well. Once again, C, which is below average in your deck, it's okay. It's fine.
Mm-hmm. Well, I might go back and look at the Stormpike Quartermaster score. I feel like we are rating it too high. It probably belongs in the next video. But let's go to the next one for now. Next one is Popsicler. Popsicler is an epic card. We haven't seen one of those in a while. It is a 3 mana 3/3 Death Rattle. Freeze 2 random enemy minions. It's a Death Rattle. You can't quite control most of the times. You're not exactly sure what you're freezing, but it's really annoying to your opponents too, because like if they kill it with something and let's say it lives, well now it's frozen, right? And something else may be frozen too that they just played. Like it for a 3 mana 3/3 to be better than a Yeti, it's doing something.
Yeah, it's good. It'll be quite annoying sometimes. The problem is just that stat line. God, 3 mana 3/3 stuck. Death Rattle is like I'm imagining what the average board is, and this is gonna be pretty annoying a lot of the times. Like actually really annoying. But man, if it were like a 3/4 or a 4/3, this could be
Oh my
really
god,
good.
that would
This
have
could
been
be
insane.
like really good. But man, a 3 mana 3/3 is just like a trash stat line.
Like it's meant to die. It's gonna die, but it's gonna do something when it dies. It would have dealt some damage. Like, and if they leave it just on the board, it could do crazy things later on, right? That they do not like.
Yep.
Okay. Next we have Storm Pike Marshal. Storm Pike Marshal is a 4 mana 2/6 taunt, which is not better than a Yeti. But if you took 5 or more damage on your opponent's turn, that means the turn right before that, when your opponent acted, this costs 1 mana. So you're probably not going to take 5 or more damage on turns before turn 4. But it means later on in the game, when this is even more off curve than 2/6 is, you can get a 1 mana 2/6 taunt out when you need it, which is when your opponent is going to your face. So that's pretty good.
It's okay. That's the only thing saving it. Because a 4 mana 2/6 a Stegodon sucks.
Yeah.
Like a Stegodon really, really sucks now. So this is fine. And yes, it's like the time in which it is cheap is exactly the time that you want the taunt. But if you're cheating out a 2/6 taunt for 1 mana later on, whatever. I mean, we've seen bigger swings than that. So yeah, it's fine. You shouldn't be looking to draft this. Definitely.
But it's better than Yeti. Like the utilitiness of it beats out the curve of the Yeti.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And finally, my least favorite card of the entire set that is not overpowered. It is the last card in the C tier. Again, last but not least, all cards in a tier we rank similarly. We'll sometimes tell you if it's low or high, but generally they're the same. It is Humongous Owl. It's a 7 mana card. It is an 8/4. Terrible stat lines. But Death Rattle, deal 8 damage to a random enemy. Not even a random enemy minion. But keep in mind, 8 damage to your face is also really, really bad. Like, you know, like, if my owl deals 8 damage to my opponent's face, I'm not like, oh no, right? I'm like, okay, well now this is how I play the game. Uh this card. That randomness. Oh.
Yeah, I don't love it. It's funny. It's like a meme card. It's so tilted. Um, you'll draft it sometimes. It's fine. It's just really uh it's a big investment on your end to put out this card. Really easy for them to get rid of. It's not too hard for them to at least put out a couple of things for this thing to potentially hit and not get value out
Yeah,
of,
you'd
right?
still
Like they
get
can put out
value out of it. Like, you don't get
you
8
still
damage of
get
value, but you're still killing something small, which is a
you're still
decent thing.
killing something small, right?
Right.
And if it hits their face, 8 damage is a ton, so it might even change your game plan. So that's why it is where it is. Just the only problem is like it costs so much and it doesn't do anything immediately, and your opponents can react to it. Like these are things that you don't want in the current meta. It's just
Hmm.
like, wait, it doesn't taunt at least, and it doesn't have initiative, and it has its death rattle, but it's random, and like opponents can like play around it a little bit and to lower the odds of it
Like,
being
like
effective.
add it up
That
though.
sucks.
Like, let's say you take a Shadow Bolt, right? 3 mana, 4, and then not even a Shadow Bolt. Let's say you do a 4 mana, deal 4 damage, draw a card, so it doesn't count as a card, right? To kill this, which is pretty efficient. That's 4 mana you've already used. Now you're gonna have to use a card, which is like a 3 mana card, right? So if the random thing this kills is a 3-drop, it's gotten its value. It's gotten its normal, what you should get, like, better than a Yeti or about a Yeti kind of value. And that's probably what's going to happen. And that's if they can remove it somewhat efficiently by dealing exactly 4 damage. They may have to deal 5 damage. They may have to run their Yeti into it, right? Like, there's a lot of ways in which this could get that, like, extra value out of your opponent. And the key here is that 8 damage to your opponent's face is still meaningful. It's not a miss. Now, like Merp said, like, what sucks if your opponent puts out a bunch of 1/1s, but, like, what are the odds that they can actually do? You're probably going to get something decent from it.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
That's where we're at.
That's it. That was the last one. These are all of the normally playable cards that are coming in that you will be happy or at least not sad to have in your deck. We're going to move on after this into cards that you will not be happy to have in your deck and on legendaries, just because otherwise it would be a very sad episode to just have crap cards. But yeah, after this, I'm going to take a look again at what was that card? Stormpike Quartermaster. I think we may have missed on that one, but I'll confirm. It may also be in the next video. Is kind of what I'm getting at.
Oh, I like it there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about it after this. You want to give shoutouts?
I mean,
No.
but
Okay,
yes.
I'll give shoutouts, or if you don't want to give shoutouts.
Oh, okay, yeah, you do it.
Okay, I want to give a shout out to. I mean, I haven't been doing much in the last month or so because we haven't been playing a lot of arena or doing whatever. But we're gonna ramp up this arena content now that dual class is over again, and our great video team. David Attenborough says uploading this onto YouTube, and Soren, who will be editing our 12 win videos. Hopefully those are coming back. We haven't seen a lot of 12 wins because we haven't been getting 12 wins because I've been playing like one arena run a week and getting 0-3 in dual class, and Rubes has not been playing arena at all. But in the new meta, hopefully they'll come back, and yeah, it's exciting times. Keep in mind we have all the arena coops. Oh, arena coop will also be coming back now that we're not in dual class anymore. All this stuff coming back. So check out our YouTube once the new expansion comes out. There will be content. It will be back to normal, unless the meta really, really, really sucks, and then we give up. But hopefully it won't be, or at least not for long. So on that happy note, we will end this episode. See you in the next one.
Bye. Bye.
All right. Give me a sec. I'm gonna do the export. I'm gonna remath that one. I don't think that one actually should come out that high. I'm trying to math it in my head. Like, I think it's very unlikely that it actually comes out that high. I think I meant to put it as a D, and I put it as a C by accident. Like, you have